Welcome to Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversation that includes respect for opinions, facts, and diversity. Spokane Talks is brought to you in part by McNeese Wheeler Attorneys and Rana Paint.
Welcome to this episode of Spokane Talks. I'm Ryan McNeese. I'll have an opportunity to sit down with Greg Heister, award-winning producer of Seasons on the Fly and Gonzaga basketball broadcaster. Then, on Ed 101, motivational speaker Doug Kaplicki, followed by She Says with Stephanie Regalado and Sandra Gerard, talking about educational opportunities in all districts and all schools for kids in our community.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rana Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rana Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome to the show. I'm Ryan McNeese, and we're here with Greg Heister. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Ryan. Great to be here.
I want to cover a little bit of ground. Seasons on the Fly, Emmy award-winning show. You produced it. You're hosting it. You've been all over the world with the show. Mm-hmm. You also own a lodge, fishing lodge in Alaska, as well as, of course, play-by-play Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's a pretty good year.
We could cover a lot of ground, but a lot of good years. And you've participated courtside for many of those years. Let's start out, though. Tell me about your passion with Seasons on the Fly and how you even got into that.
So as a kid, I was a big fan of Kurt Gowdy, and I don't know if your viewers are old enough to remember Kurt Gowdy, but he was the host of the American Sportsman, one of the great play-by-play guys of all time, one of the great super broadcasters, did Super Bowls, World Series, NBA championships, Final Fours.
A voice associated with all of those great
with all those things. And so as a kid, I was enamored by that dude. And so I set out to be Kurt Gowdy, and it's evolved.
You're going to emulate this.
And in a small way I've done that. Obviously, I'm not working on the level that he was, but, Seasons on the Fly is on national television, NBC Sports Network, Discovery Channel, play-by-play. I've certainly done games on a national level. So in my own little way, I've kind of, it ignited a passion as a young boy.
You've experienced that opportunity.
Yeah. It's been great, and I wouldn't want to do it any other way.
Well, you really have combined your passion not only of fly fishing in and of itself, and a lot of folks are interested in fly fishing, but you've combined your skills as a guide in multiple states and the production. Tell us a little bit about how you combine the production quality, because it is being filmed and produced at a high level. I've watched it on the national stations, and it's very well done.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. But it's, I've spent so many years in television developing skills as a storyteller. I've been throwing flies to fish and making flies since I was this big. And so it was just the blending of two skill developments is really what it came down to. And so there's a lot of people out there today that are producing television on fishing that they weren't in television. Right. They didn't have that skill set. They had to go out and hire someone else to do those things. So with Seasons on the Fly, I help shoot it, I direct it, I produce it, I write it, I narrate it. In many cases, I edit it.
And you've expanded it now to a lodge in Alaska.
Yeah, so I own a lodge up in Alaska, so the Seasons on the Fly experience continues on a great river in Alaska. It's designed for the average person to come up and enjoy a world-class experience on one of the great rivers that state has to offer. The largest run of salmon, some of the largest trout in the state, grayling over 20 inches, eating dry flies. It's a magical place.
Well, let's come right back from a short break, talk about Gonzaga basketball.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Greg.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler, Attorneys.
Welcome back. We're with Greg Heister. Thanks again, Greg, for being here. I know you got a busy schedule.
That's good.
We could talk all day long about fishing, but I do want to cover Gonzaga basketball. In 18 seasons, I believe, you've been doing.
I don't even know. It's between 17 and 19 somewhere. I don't know.
Enough that you may miscount by a year.
Yeah.
But what an opportunity. Tell us about that.
It's been great. When I first got the opportunity all those years back, 01 or 01, 02, whatever it was a dream come true, no doubt. And, the honor of having that position and sitting courtside and watching this great program evolve over all these years. Coach Few and I have become very close over this time, and his family. And it's just been one of the highlights of my professional career. And it's meant a lot to me, frankly. I've turned down a lot of opportunities to stay and do Gonzaga basketball. It's meant that much to me. And I've worked with so many people over the years, from Jeff Brown to Craig Elo to now Dan and Richard. It's been awesome.
I was going to make that point, that you really have had a good crew over the years, a diverse group of individuals you've worked with.
And they've all become close friends, Ryan. And I think at the end of the day, when you get to the end of the road in your life, that's what's most important. Is that this opportunity has put me into life of so many people that are dear friends of mine today.
Well, which is why, as you indicated, you've turned down some opportunities because you know how special this is.
It is special, and I wouldn't want to do it the way I'm doing it any other way or for anybody else. It's been awesome, and I've learned so much. Richard and Dan certainly know more about basketball than I do. They've taught me a lot. Craig Elo taught me an immense amount. Jeff Brown did as well. And I think, I didn't play college basketball. And so what this has allowed me to do over all of these nearly 20 years now is I've been to probably more practices than Dan and Richard has been in the last 20 years,
right.
Even though they played, right? Because I'm always there and listening and hearing and watching, and believe it or not, some of it through osmosis will sink in, even though you're not out there with the sneaker squeaks and backdoor cuts and all of that stuff and living it. But I do see it and read it, and it's been awesome. I love Gonzaga. I love Coach Few. He and I, we do everything together.
Well, you've combined your passion for fly fishing as well as basketball.
Yeah.
And we look forward to another great season. Thank you so much for being here, Greg.
Good to see you.
I appreciate it.
You bet.
Next up on Ed 101, Doug Kaplicki, motivational speaker and the CEO of Motivational Focus Group.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
And welcome to Education 101. I'm your host, Eric Wolfram. Today we've got Doug Kaplicki with me. Doug is the CEO of Positive Focus Group. I've worked with him in the past around the region here. And he was also the 2017 Principal of the Year. And so we're going to catch up with him and seeing what kind of things he's been going on lately.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha.
Yeah, this is great.
That's great. So 2017 Principal of the Year, you got some opportunities to kind of get out there, because now you're out there with Positive Focus Group, and you're doing some great things with it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I was completely humbled and honored to have something like that. I was about a year prior, I was trying to kind of start getting into doing some presentations all over the, like in schools across the country. And so it really opened up some huge doors for me. And I have been able to be in 20 plus states athletes and just loving the opportunity to work with so many young kids and so many adults and then people in the business world
and
as
in
well.
the business world as well.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the I guess events you've been doing and what kind of things you've been doing with those businesses and with the educators.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, so even just looking at this last August, I had the opportunity to launch a little district from Wilder, and then all of a sudden in Wilder, Idaho, worked with a colleague of mine, that's a superintendent, just to kick off their staff, get some good energy. A lot of it has a lot of humor to it, and try to kind of just get energy, talk about relationships, talk about chemistry. Went from there to Hoquiam, then went out to Harvard and Cambridge, and had a chance to work with the class of 2022 and some amazing people out there. So it's been just
I mean, what a breadth of places that you've gotten the opportunity to go to.
Yeah, it's been neat.
And you've really focused on that relationships piece, because that is so important. It doesn't matter if it's education or if it's going to be in the business world. Tell me some of the activities that you've done with them.
Yeah, so some of the things that we've been doing, we do something called the Cards You're Dealt, and it goes through kind of a metaphor where we pass out cards and talk about the hearts of your operation. Who are your diamonds in the rough in your system? How you don't get clubbed by the components of whether it's a business or an educational piece. And then we also get into aspects of don't judge a book by its cover. I go into middle schools a lot of times and dress up and kind of dress as something else. And then we address Snapchat and Instagram and some of the bullying and depression and some of the suicide things that are going on in schools. And so it's been unbelievable meeting so many great kids and so many great educators across the country.
Absolutely. And that relationship and that trauma piece is so important.
Right.
So let's take a quick break. Let's hear from our sponsors, and then let's continue on with the conversation.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler Attorneys.
And welcome back to Education 101. Before the break, Doug and I were talking a little bit about some of the work that he's been doing in the business and education world. Been doing some work around trauma, been doing some work around let's not judge a book by its cover.
Right.
You know, some of those activities. And again, working with education, but business as well.
Sure.
You know, so it's kind of interesting and kind of exciting to see you going off and and doing some of those things. But it's so important to keep that in mind that we need to, from educators, from businesses, we don't know what cards are being dealt.
Right.
And that's what you're learning, relationships.
Right.
You know,
And oftentimes,
empathy.
yeah, and even like we all come in with an emotional and a social backpack that's full, and we've talked about that in business environments. Kids, it's we have no idea what someone's going through. It might be empty nest syndrome. It might be something where they have a brand new baby at home. It might be they're taking care of an elderly parent or something. And so that's one of the things. But I also talk with a lot of teachers and a lot of folks about the bamboo theory. And the bamboo theory is something that I love. I read this. The bamboo in Thailand, you can water it, you plant the seed. It may not grow for 3 or 4 years. And once it does and it hits daylight, it grows 60 to 90 feet. And it's really what we're dealing with as parents. I mean, as coaches, as teachers, as business owners. And oftentimes, if we put that time in with the relationship and the chemistry of folks, oftentimes that bamboo will grow, and it's amazing watching kids grow. And I think I see this, my first love is probably that middle school age and high school age. But even at the college levels, I've talked to a lot of professors and worked with a lot of colleges, and and they see the same thing. And so it's been a blessed opportunity for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the other thing along with that relationship piece is that whole idea of the positive messages. And I think, you know, I get the opportunity to kind of follow you from the back.
Thank you.
From the outside. I'm a
Thanks.
lurker, if you will. But,
Sure.
you know, but you're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter.
Yep.
So LinkedIn is,
Just Doug Kaplicki.
okay,
Yep.
and then Twitter.
is Doug Cap is my handle.
Absolutely. And I think the work that you're doing is wonderful. I'm excited
you.
to see you out there doing this positive
you. I really
messaging that
appreciate
goes
it.
along with it.
I'm humbled
you
by
know,
this.
so
Thank you.
absolutely. So catch our full conversation on SpokaneTalksMedia.com at Education 101.
Next up on She Says, Sandra Gerard from the League of Education sits down with Stephanie Regalato and discusses equal opportunities in all districts and all schools for the children in our community.
Welcome to a new kind of talk show, Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversations that include respect for opinions, facts, and diversity.
Spokane Talks, Sunday nights at 6 on Fox 28.
Hello, welcome to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalato, your host. I have Sandra Gerard with me today. You are the Spokane Regional Field Director.
Yes.
I'm nailing this, for the League of Education Voters Foundation.
Yes, exactly.
You have been in this role for 3 years now
3
in
years.
Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
The organization started in Seattle.
Yes.
And they so brilliantly declared and understood that they needed a representation.
Exactly.
A representative over here.
Mm-hmm.
And you are truly boots on the ground, working within the community to detect our particular needs and our public education system.
Yes.
K through 12 primarily, but you also...
We're just also early
You're
learning
early-
and
yes.
and post-secondary as well. But we've done a lot more work in like the preschool area to K through 12.
How have you guys seen, or what has the outcome been for the preschool program? What's the data like that you were part of the...
Oh,
was
so
just the early intervention.
So no,
programs?
what we did was a few years ago we helped pass the Early Start Act.
Oh, that's it.
One of our lobbyists who worked for us before was really instrumental in working with others to getting that passed.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of early learning work now. Again, you know, and sometimes you're like, well, we kind of sort of a little bit solved this problem, so now we're going to move on somewhere
Right.
else. But it doesn't mean we're not doing work. We're always doing work in early learning. We have a lot of great partners who also work in other aspects of early learning, such as the home visiting program, where nurses go in and work with young moms to see how they're doing.
Oh, I love it.
So there's different pieces that we're always working on in early learning.
And what is the mission of the League of Education
Our mission
Voters?
is to ensure that all students across the state have access to an education that'll make them successful to either decide to go to work or to go to college or a certificate. We just want to make sure that students are ready for that.
For all possibilities.
For
in
all
life.
possibilities. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah, I love it. And we were talking earlier in the longer podcast about some children not even understanding the full spectrum of possibility, and some who do. It's just due to exposure, et cetera, socioeconomics and all sorts of things. And how is the organization, LEV, how is the organization really working to
work
ensure that
all
there's-
students are ready for college
Yeah.
or for a 2-year certificate.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with policy pieces related to making sure that students have a diploma that will allow for that to happen. Students need to take a certain amount of math classes and English, that type of thing. So we do that as well. But then we also work on the resources that students need. What are some of the issues the school districts are having? Do they need more funds for literacy programs? What are some of those pieces? So we're always looking at that. And
Welcome back to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalato with Sandra Gerard of the League of Education Voters Foundation. What is something you've observed that's unique to Eastern Washington or the Spokane region?
Okay. But one thing that I have found and have loved is that I think our community is ready to come together and have those difficult conversations on how we could best help students in our area. We have to look at the whole child, and I think that our region is really ready and poised to do that. It's not just the test, it's not just showing up attendance, it's the other pieces. What are some of the things that that student is going through at home? How can we as a community come together and really help everyone, all the students that are
really having those conversations to detect the gaps in the first place, and then to find ways that you can fill them. And it's so cool. That's what I love so much about Spokane. It's not that we're always talking, but there's always a lot of movement as well.
There's action, definitely.
Action. So actionable. How can people become involved with the organization? What can they do? How can they contribute?
So I would love if anybody who's interested and wants to be a part of the work that we'll be doing next year, email me at Sandra, Sandra, at educationvoters.org, or go onto our website, educationvoters.org, if they would like to contribute. A lot of, all the funds will go to doing a lot of the work that we do in different communities across the state.
Excellent. And your website's also an amazing resource, nonpartisan, really digging into the numbers.
We dig into the data that nobody really wants to look at, to be honest. It's a lot of work, and we have great policy analysts that are on our team, and they do their due diligence in making sure that everything is factual, and that they take something really complicated and make it easy for everybody to read, including me. So I think that's really useful too.
And then people can really then become educated on how to vote for education.
Exactly.
Well,
and we also have a lot of great podcasts as well, and webinars that we do with educators across the state as well. So there's also that piece.
And your executive director, I heard her speak at an event, Chris Corsmo, amazing, magical human. I think everyone should.
Yes, everybody loved her.
Yes, she's fabulous. Yes. Well, I love the work that you're doing here. I'm super excited to continue supporting you guys and the organization. And again, the website?
educationvoters.org.
Educate yourself, contribute, have coffee with you.
Yes, have coffee with me. Let's figure out a way to partner and work on a project together. I'd love that.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Sandra.
you for the invite.
Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to Spokane Talks. We have had the opportunity to be out here on the Z Nation set. But also we're excited at Spokane Talks. We have several shows, different genres, from real estate radio, Spokane Talks Live, Meet the Candidates, The Locker Room. We have several shows coming to you that can be found on all social media platforms, as well as coming up on Fox 28. Thank you so much. It's been a great opportunity being here at Z Nation set. Thank you.
Cindy Hval is a freelance columnist and correspondent for the Spokesman Review and author of War Bonds, Love Stories from the Greatest Generation. The view from her porch is usually sunny.
I'm not sure how teaching my sons to drive ended up on my list of parental responsibilities, but I felt that way about potty training and shoe tying too, and, well, here we are. It's been several years since son number 3 slid behind the wheel of the family minivan, but the memories are still vivid. We picked up his learner's permit and Zachary said, "Can I drive home?" The fact that he'd never actually operated a motor vehicle didn't faze him. His confidence stemmed from the fact that he is the family's current undisputed Mario Kart racing champ. "You can drive from the end of the block to our driveway," I said, and pulled over to change seats with him. Teaching someone to drive is challenging because so many of the important details become second nature and you fail to notice them anymore, like keeping your foot on the brake when you put the car into drive. "Stop!" I yelled. Well, Zach says I yelled. I think I just spoke loudly in a firm voice. But Zachary is a sensitive soul, and when I said emphatic things like, "Hit the brakes, not the gas, are you trying to kill us?" it hurt his feelings, and he took it personally. "Mom, you are crushing my soul," he said. But we made it home without causing too much carnage and mayhem, and I hoped the damage to Zach's psyche was as negligible. It must have been because the next day he was ready to go again. I, meanwhile, was busy plucking out newly sprouted gray hairs. But I drove him to a neighborhood shopping center where I'd taken his older brothers, and he slowly navigated the parking lot with care. Soon he was ready to practice parking. He found an empty spot and perfectly pulled in between the yellow painted lines. Wow, I said, that was fantastic. You did a great job. He beamed. And you know what the best part is? What? I asked. On Monday, I get to tell my driver's ed teacher I drove my mama to the liquor store. Teenagers driving parents to drink since time began. And that's the view from my front porch.
Thank you for joining us this week on Spokane Talks for news, views, and conversation. Please join us next week.
Spokane Talks is about you. Give us your feedback and comments at info@SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Spokane Talks is brought to you in part by McNeese Wheeler Attorneys, Ponderosa Republican Women, and Rada Paint. We'll be back next week with additional news, views, and conversations. Please join us. So long for now.